Okay, today I want to talk about Apache Web Server running in Linux, and I specifically want to talk about directory browsing in the Apache Web Server. I have a CentOS 6 Linux VM that you're looking at right here, and I also have a Windows 7 Ultimate virtual machine that's running as well that I'm going to be using to test the Apache Web Server from a client machine out on the network once we get directory browsing set up in CentOS 6 and Apache. I've logged in as root right now, and I logged in as root in CentOS because with being logged in as root, I have elevated privileges throughout the entire time I'm in here, and so I'll be able to do things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise, or not as easily anyway. I'd have to run sudo commands a lot, and so I'm just logged in as root to take care of that. Alright, so to get started, what I'm going to do, point of this demonstration is to show you how you can turn directory browsing on and off in the Apache Web Server so that if you ask to pull up a web page from the Apache Web Server using a directory as opposed to a file, that you can prevent the web server from showing you the directory structure in that folder. And so that's the point of this entire demonstration. Let's go ahead and verify a couple of things. First of all, let me go ahead and fire up the terminal, and then I'm going to open this up to full screen. I want to first of all run an ifconfig to get the IP address on this server, Apache Web Server running on the Linux box. So the IP address of the Linux box is 192.168.142.176, and so that's going to be the IP address of the Apache server as well. So 142.146. I'm going to show that I do have Apache running, so I'm going to run a service command, which is service httpd status, to run a status on the server. It does tell me that the HTTP daemon, which is the Apache Web Server, is running right now. And also what I want to do is to show you that I have it configured so that if I restart this Linux box, it will survive a restart and Apache will come up automatically. So I'm going to run a check config, and I'm going to run or pipe that out rather to grep for HTTPD and show you that right now in run levels 2, 3, 4, and 5, the Apache Web Server is set to come up and start running automatically. We are currently in run level 5, which is the run level for the GUI, and I can show that by running a run level, and it shows that I had no run level to begin with. Now I'm in run level 5. So when this machine is restarted, Apache would come up and start automatically, and that's what you want to happen by default with an Apache Web Server running on Linux. Okay, so now that we've verified those things, what I'm going to do is set up two directories in the default location where the Apache Web Server keeps its files. And the default location here, I want to change directory to that location, is var www.html. Okay, and I'm going to run a listing right now in that directory, and you can see there is nothing in it. So if I run an ls-al, there's actually nothing in there. There's no index.html file, there's no directory structure or any of that. So if I go right now out to my Windows 7 machine and I run an IP address of 192.168.142.176, what I expect to find is the default page or test page for the Apache Web Server powered by CentOS, and this is exactly what I found. Okay. Alright, so let's go back out now to the Linux box, and what I want to do is I want to create those two directories. And so now that I'm in var www.html, I'm in the HTML directory, and I can show that by running a print working directory. what I want to do is create those two directories, and so one of them I'm going to call directory on, and one I'm going to call directory browsing off. And so let's do a make dir directory brow on, okay, and then I'm going to make a directory called directory brow off. Okay, I can type. Okay, so one's called directory brow on and one's called directory brow off. Okay, in addition to that, what I want to do is I want to also create some files within each of those directories so I can present the directories in a browsing situation if I wanted to. So let me change directory here to directory brow on, and then I want to create 3 files. Okay, so I created 3 files, touch.c1.txt, c2.txt, and c3.txt in the directory brow on directory. And now I want to get out of that, go up the directory tree and to the higher level, and then descend back into the directory brow off directory. And I want to create 3 files within there as well. No c1.txt, no c2.txt, and no c3.txt. All right, so now I've got 3 files within each of those directories, and at this point what I want to do is I want to go out of this directory back to the HTML directory, which is var www.html, and I want to create the index file that will replace the default index file in Apache. And so I want to do a vim index.html, and I want to insert some HTML code, and I want to do an h1 tag and say this is the default web page in Apache. And I want to do a paragraph tag here, and I want to do a ref tag, reference tag, href equals, and since I'm in the directory HTML where the browser directory browser on and directory browser off is located, I don't need to put any kind of path statement here, so I can just name the file, or folder rather, itself. So I want to put one link in here is directory brow on and // and then close that tag and put directory browsing on, close the a tag, do another paragraph tag here, and then do another reference tag and put in the directory brow off directory, and then directory browsing off, and then close the HTML tag. Okay, and so now let me go ahead and right quit the file. So now I have that index file set up, and the file that controls directory browsing within the Apache Web Server in Linux is a file called httpd.conf, and that file resides in a folder called etc, a subfolder called httpd, and a subfolder called conf. So if I go inside that file, let me change directory to etc httpd conf, and you can see that if I do a listing on that file, folder rather, you can see that there is an httpd.conf file there. That's the configuration file that Apache uses to control pretty much every aspect or facet of Apache Web Server. It contains over 1,000 lines of text that controls the Apache Web Server, so it's pretty documented, well documented. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy that file before I do anything with it, so that if I happen to mess that file up in any way, I can go grab the backup file and restore it and get back to where I was. So I'm going to copy that file with a cp command, httpd.conf, and copy that out to httpd.conf.org. CP, let's see here, CP httpd.conf to httpd.conf.org. Okay, that should work. Alright, so now let's do a listing of that, and you can see that the two files are there. So I do have now my original backup of the httpd.conf file. So now at this point I can get into the configuration file and show you exactly where the directory browsing is controlled within that file. So let me do a vim httpd.conf, and that's going to open the file, and let me scroll down in this file to the location where directory browsing is controlled. Okay, it's about line 310, 312, something like that. It's right in here. There's a directory statement here with the /var www.html, which is the default location where Apache Web Server keeps its website web files. So this directory statement is going to apply to to this folder and to every folder beneath that. We do have those two folders beneath HTML, which is the directory brow on and directory brow off. So what I do here will also apply to those two and to every other even index files that are within that. So right down here there's an option in this directory called options indexes follow symlinks. This is the part right here that controls how the Apache Web Server looks at folders and files within this default location. And right now, believe it or not, the Apache Web Server is set up to have directory browsing turned on by default. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down and I'm going to turn that off by taking that indexes out of that. So let me come over here and take that out. Okay, so now it is removed, and so let me come on down, and this is the end of the directory statement here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now be more specific about this. I'm going to get outside of that first directory structure, and I'm going to create another directory structure that adds that option back in only for the directory brow on, because I want directory browsing to be on only on that directory. And so I'm going to create a directory, and it's going to be let's see, var www.html and directory brow on / and then put the parentheses in there as well. So it's directory var www html directory brow on, and then I'm going to come down and tab over and add the options to add back the statement which controls the browsing, which is indexes, and I'm going to do the follow symlinks as well. Okay, and then I'm going to do the close the directory statement. Okay, so now I have another directory statement with the options underneath here that tells it for this particular location and any file or folder underneath directory brow on, you'll be able to have directory browsing turned on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save the file. So let's see, I'm going to do a right quit, get out of the file. Now that I've updated the configuration file, one of the things you have to know, or that you should know here, is that anytime you do that with Apache Web Server, you have to restart the server in order for the file to be reread. So I'm going to run a service httpd restart command to restart the server. And I didn't get any errors here, so I should be good to go. And so now what I'm going to do is go out to the Windows 7 Ultimate machine, and I'm going to type in 192.168.142.176, and that should take me to our new page, and it does. This is the default web page in Apache. The directory browsing on should be on, so if I click on that, neither one of them work. So I got to figure out what happens. So let me go back and take a look at that. Okay, what I discovered is I had added the directory statement here with a capital D for directory brow on for the folder, and that is not the case here. So let me go ahead and fix that. And so let me do insert here. And I want to get rid of the capital D and make that a small d. The folder itself is small d directory brow on, not capital D. So that makes a difference. So now that I've done that, let me go ahead and right quit the file. And so now let me restart the server one more time. And that should restart the server, and it does. And so now let me go back out to the Windows 7 machine, and let me do a Control F5, and then go ahead and click on the directory browser off, and it doesn't let us go into there for the directory, but it should let us go into here, and it does. So that was the problem. So now we're looking at the index of directory brow on. Okay, so this shows that by updating the httpd.conf file and issuing a statement, a directory statement with options to turn indexes on for directory brow on, but to leave them off for directory brow off, will allow us to descend into the directory browser or turn directory browsing on and descend into the directory, rather, of directory brow on, while not being able to do that for directory brow off.